What? And hello everyone, this is Jacob Morin, or as I like to be called, Eof. I decided to do a little bit of an impromptu video today, and for some reason I look a little bit like Lord Farquaad from Shrek, but I think, he's not the worst looking guy. It's an impromptu video. I don't know if you can hear. It's super windy outside. And my windows are very thin, and it's very drafty in here. I'm trying to keep an eye right on the camera. It's cold out there, and that's what we get for living in Maine. But I wanted to do a video. I've been thinking a lot the past few days about some philosophical ideas and some of my writing concepts that I've been working on, that I've been pondering over for a long time. I write a lot of notes like these, is stacks and stacks of these little note papers that I sometimes, scratch on when I'm on break at work and whatnot. And I've got my various journals and notebooks filled with all sorts of writing, and not to mention Google Docs on my computer where I type a lot of it. All these concepts for all these stories that, by golly, I swear I will write someday. And recently my mind has gone back to one of these ideas, which is for a fictional story that is a holy scripture. It's fabricated. It's, it's made up. It's just a story. It's for fun. But I intend to do it wholly as a bona fide, holy book for this religion and this world that I've envisioned. And especially in this story more than others, and but definitely all of my stories, I will say that there's one overarching fantasy series that I want to write someday, and I don't think I can even attempt to write those stories for at least another decade. I've got to establish myself first. But this, this religious story, so to speak, is not exactly part of that series. I think with the concepts that I have for my fantasy and the magic of those stories, they're probably connected. They probably sort of take place in the same universe, but they're not really directly connected, at least not yet. They may be. But this one regards a religion I've called Pärgäm, and I'm realizing now that I should have gotten the stone, which is sort of a crux to all of this. If you'll excuse me for just a moment. Later on I'll go try to look around for that. It may not happen. This story idea came to me a couple years ago now. I don't know exactly when. I have a selenite stone. Selenite is my favorite stone by far. Just around, you go into a rock art shop, wherever you find, it's a little round stone of selenite, an oval, I guess. And one day I was up in my bedroom upstairs where I used to be, and I was looking at this rock, and selenite, if you look at a piece of selenite, it has little sort of lines or etchings on the stone. It's sort of internal to the stone as well. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking of it, I was probably researching at the time some things like, I don't know, some concepts, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, probably at the time is what I was mostly thinking about. And if I can say one thing about my creativity, it's that I can look at something and become quite inspired by it. For example, what has become a major concept for that big fantasy series that I want to write someday came from an episode of weed-induced psychosis that I was going through. Oh, don't even get me started. But I was sitting there with my friends who were hanging out, and it, started to affect me. And I would close my eyes and see these spinning golden sort of neon plates of like some sort of metal floating in a void of space. And it's really hard to describe without showing a picture, but like thin plates, actually sort of similar to this cuff, actually really quite similar, but smooth, basically featureless, and not curved like it, so flat, very slightly curved, varying sizes, sort of stacked over each other, spinning around in a sort of a spherical shape. And I would every time I closed my eyes, every time I blinked, my head would jolt to the side along with the discs, the little plates. And at one point I closed my eyes all the way, and I sort of fell off the chair and I was rolling into the wall. The point is that I think I do have sort of a natural knack for, being able to see something mundane and to be inspired from it. And that's what happened with that stone, because I looked at it, and envisioning is the word that I like to use when a concept comes to me. It's obviously, I don't believe in the supernatural, but if there was ever, it's like a vision, and the likes of what the great William Blake experienced, perhaps. It comes from some unconscious aspect of my mind, and then there's an idea. So this stone, these markings, I took some paper and I was writing on them, and I'd see these markings and I saw them as images, as almost inscriptions, as some sort of intaglio, some sort of relief carving into a stone. And simply from that, it didn't come from anything. I didn't go into anything expecting to come up with an idea. I just looked at the stone, and then there was this idea, and that branched out from that completely random act into these images on this stone are depicting concepts and stories and scenes from a theology, from a religion. And it all went from there. So Pärgäm is the religion based around this stone, which is called Pärg. And Pärg is a being, a deity of sorts, a being of light, which is what the big fantasy series that I'll write someday is largely based around. Beings of light, divine, supernatural beings. So in the origin story, there's a good philosophical word for that. I can't remember it right now, but Pärg was just an average, pretty low level spirit being in a world much like our own. It may even be, just the world and the universe of that other series. It may not be, I'm not sure. But he found this stone, and he liked it a lot. Or it, I should say. They. And came to possess the stone, or inhabit the stone. And so the spirit, Pärg, through some, mystical, magical means that the pleromic beings, that's all the lingo from my story, possess, something happened. And whether or not that was intentional by Pärg, I haven't decided yet. But Pärg fell into the stone. And this act of falling into itself removed Pärg, which I now use to describe the physical stone itself and the mental being, the spirit called Pärg. They became one and the same, because Pärg inhabited the stone, which fell into itself and into a universe generated by itself, and within which the physical stone of Pärg came to exist, completely within itself, not external in the universe that it came from at all. Pärg fell into itself, and this act was the creation of a new universe, or a new world with perhaps some sort of a finite firmament around it. But it is at least the universe generated from the light of Pärg within this stone of selenite created a world quite like ours, and Pärg was fractured into the essence of everything in that universe. Everything in that universe is Pärg. But Pärg did not remember themselves, and became sort of a reflection of the true Pärg who had existed in the external universe. And so a whole world was created with human beings and other animals and plants. It just looks like our world, Earth, but sort of in the timeline of the scripture, of the story, it's basically biblical. It looks a lot like Egypt or the Levant. And so, I kind of tend to ramble. I'll try to keep things cohesive. Pärg existed in this state as, I use a placeholder name. It's not a very good name. It's not going to be the final name, but the ever-being became the conscious, supreme deity of this universe. But of course, it's no more or less divine. It is no more or less Pärg than anything else in the universe. It is just the thinking aspect, the thinking entity in that universe that has the most personal power and has the most awareness of the nature of things. But that's a limited awareness where the being that what was Pärg, who has fractured into various emanations into the whole universe, does not remember that it's Pärg, does not remember the external universe that it came from, and it does not remember how this universe that it now basically controls came to be. But things were good for some time, and the people prospered, and there was, if any, suffering. It was very little. I think perhaps the people didn't die. It's like in Greek mythology, or I believe in some, maybe the Mayan religion of Central America, historical ages which were more prosperous and, more supreme than that which we are stuck living in now. A golden age, everything was good, and the ever-being exists in sort of a heaven realm, a divine temple of light in the sky that is separate from the physical reality, but it can be visited or attained under certain circumstances by mortals. But the ever-being itself does not directly interact with the physical world. It instead emanates avatars with varying attributes and qualities and physical appearances and personalities and specific goals for what they individually wish to achieve. And the purpose of this is that the ever-being, through the avatars, wants to learn more about the nature of this universe that it has found itself in, so that it may uncover the truth of the reality of itself. And it searches, and the avatars search for a long, long time among the people and animals and plants and things of the world. And so it goes on, and it just doesn't discover the truth, and this takes a toll on the ever-being. And its psyche diminishes, it grows worse and worse day by day. And it comes to pass that it reaches a breaking point. The ever-being is tormented. It cannot think clearly anymore, and it is distraught. It's an existential crisis experienced by a god. And this does not bode well. And the physical stone of Pärg existed high in the divine realm of the ever-being, possessed the physical stone that generates the universe which it itself exists within. Try to think about that. And this crisis that the ever-being was experiencing mentally, through some means, caused the stone to break into two separate pieces, and I should say it fell from the divine realm onto a mountain, a snowy mountainside in a country in the world, and split into two. And this breaking of the stone that generates the entire universe thus separated a segment of that universe into what became a damaged sort of hell type realm. And from this hellish realm was generated a demonic, sort of satanic aligned figure called Kal. And Kal is the equivalent of Lucifer, the Satan. And I'll get into this later, but Zoroastrianism, Angra Mainyu, also known as Ahriman, and is sort of the epitome of suffering and torment and bad things and evil. And this being the sliver of the stone, the smaller segment from which this hellish realm is generated, Kal captured that, so he controls that. They control that. And Pärg is rendered in two. And from then on, the age of prosperity is over, and Kal and their demons create much strife and suffering in the world. And such is the state of the universe when the primary story of the scripture is concerned, revolving around a human hero, notably, unbrilliant. In fact, they are chosen by the avatar who is searching for this person to be just your average person from whom the ever-being could learn the true and, normal experience of being, in the hope that that would create the knowledge that they need, and for this person to be the prophesied hero who will reconcile Kal in the damaged Pärg with itself. So this is all very what I've been thinking of recently and writing about, and I've thought of this for a while, but that's recently what I've been delving further into, is based on my admittedly surface level understanding of Zoroastrianism, which is not very scholarly right now. It comes mostly from Wikipedia pages and YouTube. There is the dichotomy between the supreme being, the god, Ahura Mazda, and the Angra Mainyu, the demonic evil spirit, the epitome of evil and badness. It's a good versus evil. Well, that was just lovely. My phone is super old. It was old when I got it. I've had it for maybe almost 5 years now. Decided to just stop recording all of a sudden, probably because the storage is too low and it just can't handle it. Anyway, as I was trying to say, dichotomy between good and evil is sort of a central concept in Zoroastrianism, and in the sense of these two opposing beings, the Pärgäm is similar in that sense. And another way that it's similar to the concepts of this scripture that I'm going to write, which comes from my personal philosophy, and is sort of a vehicle for me to share and explore my personal philosophy. There's a concept in Zoroastrianism called Asha, which is, famously said to be difficult to describe in languages besides Avestan, but it is sort of the truth or the right way or the righteousness in the theology and the morality of Zoroastrianism. And in this way, it's also similar to, Bodhi. I don't trust my pronunciations on anything, but in Buddhism, like the truth, sort of, again, very surface level understandings that I have, but that's what I gather to be a generalized definition. Bodhi is the mental awareness in truth that is sought in Buddhism, and one who has attained this is said to be a bodhisattva. And there's a particular reckoning of a bodhisattva in, I think, Mahayana Buddhism, that particular train of thought or school of Buddhism, where someone who becomes a bodhisattva, instead of transcending the endless cycle of suffering and life and death and rebirth, the samsara, and, having reached enlightenment where they could choose to move beyond this and break free from this cycle into a state of bliss, free from suffering, they instead choose to remain in this mortal coil so that they may help others reach that state of enlightenment. And it's a sacrifice, basically, of righteousness and of goodness to help your fellow humanity. And there's a similar sort of concept in Zoroastrianism, which is asharam. It's something like that. So of the asha, someone who has reached this level of awareness of asha, the truth, the right way to live, perhaps you could say. And they similarly, it can be certain people who have reached that state who try to share this and help others attain that. Fascinating how, I think those are pretty similar concepts. I would hedge a bet, since, of course, the Vedic religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, are all, in some way at least, born from the primordial Indo-European religion, which spread, not only to the major religions of Europe, the old Greek religion, mythology, the Roman, the Norse, the Germanic, the Celtic. It's all connected, and it's even to Persia with the Zoroastrianism, to Iran, and across to India, and of course nowadays so much further, so far. It's so fascinating how these are all connected, and they all sort of derive from the same original theology. So I don't doubt that these concepts sort of evolved from a similar sense of, what the purpose of life and the purpose of adhering to these religions is. And it aligns remarkably well with what I personally try to achieve, and I think that we humans as thinking beings should strive towards, and the way that we should live as, and what we should try to achieve in our lives, from a secular sense, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in anything supernatural. Third time is the charm, I hope. On the bright side of things, look, you notice how I got to showcase 3 different torques and 3 different hats in one video? Yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyway, I'm an atheist. I think that what we experience in this life is all that there is to it, basically. And it's easy for someone to take that interpretation in a pessimistic sense. And it is scary, obviously, that we're thrown into this scary, tumultuous universe. And, you know, there's a lot of suffering, obviously. It kind of sucks a lot of the time. But it doesn't need to. We can lessen the suffering and the torment of being by focusing on the remarkable beauty and brilliance of it. I know it's such a cliche to say, you know, to be spiritual but not religious. But I think that it's not a terrible term to use when I describe that having this worldview that there's no afterlife, that we have this one life to live before, you know, our conscience goes black forever and there's nothing else after that. There's so much that is beautiful and poetic and incredible that we're so lucky to experience because we exist. And the circumstances of the world that we live in can and should and will be changed by us. But we have to make that happen. And that is the motivation for us to be good and to help out our fellow people. And that is a spirituality in a sense, because as much as I think religion is ultimately harmful and foolhardy, in a word, I love them. I love, you know, learning about different religions and their interpretations of things and the worldviews. And there is a lot of beauty in the teachings of religions, and a lot that it's not like I scorn the very thought of religion. These are systems that people have created to understand and comprehend the universe and existence, and to try to make out of it a system of the way that we should live in the righteous way. That's natural, that's human, that's not any different than philosophy. It just happens to have a supernatural aspect to it, and it happens to have an aspect of dogma to it that I think is what is dangerous. And I think the pseudoscience of it is dangerous, because we should not seek to delude ourselves. Sounds harsh, but you know, it ultimately is putting faith in things that cannot be proven and are not known to be. I don't think there's any reason for that. I think there's just as much value in understanding things as we know them to be, which is that we exist and we are all part of the one whole. And what I've for a while sought to create is what I describe as a secular paganism, which means to say a sort of metaphorical ritual system and veneration system that is It's not ironic by any means, but it is to focus on a reverence for nature and for the bliss and the beauty of the fact that we exist. And there's so much potential from that. Religion for centuries, for eons, and still now for the majority of people in the world, still so many people, despite the downsides that I think there is to that, it's structure and it's a form of guidance and it's something to ground yourself on, and that is crucial, I think, to any person's life. And I think it's ultimately good that religion may be declining and that people are more secular and atheistic, but you can't just suddenly strip away that system and that guidance and that teaching, or you're lost. And thus, nihilism comes from that. I hate nihilism more than anything in the world. There is nothing worse than apathy. Apathy makes my blood boil. To exist in this beautiful, beautiful universe, to think that nothing matters, and to think that it's wrong to care about things and to try to better things, it's disgusting. We exist and we are thinking beings, and so it is our duty, I think, and not in a dogmatic sense, but in the unique position that we humans find ourselves in that we are aware of our own existence and have to deal with the consequences and the emotions of that. This lends us the chance to be stewards of not only ourselves and each other, but of all of existence, which is, of course, basically all one thing. The universe, and in my writings and my notes and my stories, I like to say all that is as a synonym for the universe. We are all the same thing. The universe, then, and I say this as an atheist and as someone who does not have any supernatural belief, because we exist as part of the universe, and because we think and are aware of ourselves, and because the universe is everything that it is the totality of all things that exist, not just the physical, but the mental, that which can't be measured or can't be seen or known. It exists only in some realm of our minds, however the hell that works. It's all one thing, and I don't know whether everything, you boil it down to the elementary particles, it's all one substance. I don't know, but the universe is one thing, and we are all of that universe, and thus the universe is alive, and it's alive through us because we are alive. In the same way that we have hands, I am a living being. My skin as a separate component of myself is not itself living in the sense that it has its own separate conscience. It's part of my living totality. But the material, the flesh itself, is not a being. How is that different than the fact that we are the minds and we are the thinking beings in this universe? But that doesn't make, any planet or any star separate from us. The the planets and the physical things are to the totality of the universe as our hands and our feet and our hair, and as all these physical parts of ourselves are. I'm trying to describe this in a way that makes sense, but I think it was Carl Sagan that said this, we are the sensory organs of the universe. If you think of the universe as one thing, which our current understanding is that it is, then that means the entire universe is a single living being through us. And I'm not saying that we're not distinct individuals, because we are, and it's not like there's some sort of connected hive mind consciousness. I don't want anyone to get that impression from what I'm saying. But the fact of the matter is, we are all the universe. We are God. If you want to think of a concept of a God, it's the fact that the universe is alive because we are alive. And we are in the position to shape the future of ourselves and of this universe. And there's so much that is bad in the world, and so many people who are thrown asunder and raised from birth into horrible ideologies and mindsets. And I think that, the division caused by religion and nationality and all these separate lines and borders that we draw between ourselves, it's useless. We are meant to live as a union of thinking and caring and emotional and artistic creatures. And that is the point of life, the meaning of life. And what I think that we should strive towards is to forge our own identities, and the duty of that is to care for all of us. We're one species. We're all part of the unit, the union of existence. It's only natural that any being, any living thing, would want to better all parts of itself to make the greater whole healthy. You don't want to have an injured hand, you go to the surgeon, you get it fixed. I'm sinking into metaphor here, but you're sick. You try to make the part of you that is sick well, and thus your entirety is well. It's the same thing with the universe. It's the same thing with all of us. By spreading goodness and wellness and caring, it doesn't take a lot. It's just the very basic, you look at another person and you understand that we're all in the same boat. Nobody has any more answers than anyone else. So why the hell are we fighting wars and dividing ourselves on these stupid borders when we just have the chance to be who we are together, and to make things better for everyone together, and to understand that we are the divinity? We don't need to put this responsibility on anything else, any fictional concepts that we create. It's fine that that's what we did before, but now we understand the circumstances that we're in, and there has never been a time where it is more important to understand this than now. With religion on the decline, and with the, I think, ultimately good thing of people being more secular and atheistic, and being aware of our existential nature, there are so many who are lost. People are raised cycles of generations with no guidance, and education is failing people, And I work in a doctor's office. I'm a receptionist. You know, I've work on the phones or at the front desk with people coming in. And there's so much goodness to that. There's so much fulfillment. There's so many different people that I meet, and it's lovely. And there's a lot of horrible, horrible people. People who are so lost that they don't even... It has been taken from them. The decency has been taken from them by their upbringing and by the lack of guidance and by the lack of structure for moral goodness and understanding the position that we're all in. It's not their fault. And I'm very optimistic, and I think that people can change. But there's so much anger, and there's so much callousness, and there's so much ignorance, and I hate to say it, but a lot of people are just not very smart. And again, it's not their fault. It's the fault of these stupid systems that we've created. And we haven't created them. I didn't create capitalism, neither did you. These systems are imposed on us, and it feels very helpless that we can do anything to change it, but it's not. And we don't have a choice. We all have this one life. Are we going to let it pass by without trying to be the greatest and most noble and most righteous person that we can for the sake of ourselves and everything that we know to exist? We can't. We have to understand how important it is that we care. That's all that I can ask, and that's all that I can try to share with people, is to care about well-being. It takes such a small effort every day, but the slightest act of kindness or the slightest act of generosity or just showing someone that you recognize them as a fellow human being goes a long way. And if we can all do our best to share this and to share this care, there's a lot of potential from that. And in the way that, a bodhisattva or someone who has the awareness of the asha takes that and tries to help others with it, there is so much freedom in our existential secular philosophy to be the great unifying aspect of all people. And the time is now more than ever to spread that and to share that and to come together. I don't know, what that means. I like my idea of some sort of secular, paganism, because we have to have the routine, and we have to have the structure, and we have to have guidance from those we can look up to for answers or for help discovering answers for ourselves. That's what, you go to your priest, you go to your rabbi, you go to your imam, and they teach you these lessons on life, and they give you a way to be sure of yourself, and at least to not be in such dire stress and, despair. The community aspect of religion is so important, and that's something that we lose increasingly day by day with the growing influence of technology, the alienation caused by the systems that we live in today. We cannot lose that community, and that is a positive aspect of, church and mass and going to the mosque and the synagogue and the temple, any sort of temple, anything like that. That is so special, and that's such an important thing for people to have, and we're losing that. It's every person for themselves, and it's lonely, and it's sad, and it feels so distant and empty, and every year it's getting worse. We need to forge union based on an existential philosophy that understands the tremendous beauty of life and that it is our duty. But it is not just our duty, it's our duty, but we should be individually passionate to help others. And, if that is by forming some sort of metaphorical, symbolic, poetic paganism, if you want to call it, if that's how people can come together and, pay reverence to these idols, or these, concepts representing nature and time and life and being and space and the beauty of existence, then I think that would be pretty cool. But at the very least, I think that to replace the hold of religion, which I hope we can do, and to replace the need for government. We don't need government. We are more than capable of handling ourselves as civil beings. But that can't happen until we're on an equal level to build from, an equal level of knowledge and an equal level of security with food and housing and with our mental well-being. We have more than enough resources on this planet to care for everyone at the same basic level, so that we can all be tended to by our basic needs, and then we are free to pursue our artistic desires and our passionate desires and all the things that we want to do. But we, as the people of the world, are not in control of those resources and those commons. And we have to take that control back. And I don't want to get too radical here, but last one now, folks. I'll make this quick. We don't have time to waste. If we don't fix the way that things are, we are all going to die. And as far as we know, thought and thinking and mind and aware beings will cease to exist in this universe forever. And then all hope is lost. But it's not lost. We have this chance, and we have got to do it. And all that I can urge anyone to do, starting tonight, starting the second you watch this video, starting tomorrow, starting whenever you can. I'm not asking a lot. Just try to do well for yourself and for others, and try to care, and try to be passionate, and try to be happy, and try to see the beauty in spite of all the darkness and suffering in the world. And try to just do one good thing at a time, and it's going to go a long way. And we're going to come together, and we're going to make this world, and this existence, and this universe, and as this totality of ourselves, the very best that it can be. It's going to happen. I am confident that it's going to happen. But it's not going to happen by putting that onto someone else. We can't harness our hopes that some savior is going to descend from the heavens and just do it all for us. We've got to take each other by the hands. We've got to shake things down and rebuild them, and everything is going to be all right. Thank you for listening to my rambling, and just try to think and do and be well. Thank you, friends. Take care of yourselves, and please feel free to share any thoughts that you have with me, and we can get something pretty nice going, I think. Have a good one. Take care.